There you have it. One of the most beloved stories in our culture, and one of their favorite parables that Jesus told. He told some wonderful parables in Luke's gospel, and this is one that we do appreciate. So, it's a parable that involves four characters. Four characters. The first character is the patriarch, the dad, the father. Now, he's a man, a Middle Eastern man of enough wealth that he has property to leave for his sons. He also has rings and robes and slaves and hired hands. He's a pretty important patriarch in that society. That's one character in this story. Then there are two more. The first we know very well, the younger son. We all want to go, boo. The younger son. Now, we might describe him as really arrogant, as self-centered, as rude, as terribly thoughtless. He says, I want that money and I want it now. There's a third son, second son, a third character, the older son. We might say that this older son is a bit self-righteous. You know, pretty important about himself. He's into law and order, it seems to be. He gets angry quickly. He is bitter, and it seems to bear a grudge against both his father and his brother, his no good loser brother. So here's the story. No, that was with the first three characters. And here's the story in case you dozed off during the reading of the gospel and you were thinking about how amazing it is that Duke University is in the Final Four. So I'll just give you the Reader's Digest condensed version. The son, younger one, he basically says to his dad, I consider you to be dead. I want your half, my half of your inheritance, and I want it now. Who knows what I'll use it for, but I want it now. His dad says, okay. Notice that? Okay, and gives it to him. The son runs off to the bigger city, we think, where there are wine, women, and song. There's even a famous artwork where he's lying eventually among the pigs, and he has cufflinks on with the Playboy Club seal on them. So he ran off for dissolute living, immoral, even wicked. Ran out of money, of course. He got sick and tired of his job wrangling pigs, and he wasn't even a good enough beggar to get money that way. So he said, I got to get home where things are better. He prepares a little speech of apology to his dad, and he heads home. Dad's been watching for him, hasn't he? Dad's been watching for him, watching and watching for him, sees him down the road, and a most unseemly scene. He goes flapping down the road, robes flying, ready to hug his son, and he does. And then his son squeezes out his speech of apology, but dad doesn't even really listen to it. He says, bring this guy a ring, bring him a robe, put sandals on his feet. Was he barefoot all that way? Probably. Put sandals on his feet. He's home, and one of those fatted calves I always have ready for a feast. Let's start cooking that thing. Okay, out in the fields is his other son, the older son. I'm an older child, so I'm always a bit sensitive about this. The older son is out in the fields. He wasn't even invited to the party, was he? No, but he hears the ruckus, finds out his brother is back, and is angry as can be. His dad tries to appease him, but that's the story in brief. It's a magnificent story, a magnificent parable. Now, those four characters that I said there are in the story, there's something very odd about all of them. There are some parts of this story that are very odd. Are you ready? Okay. The first thing, when the son says, I want my money, my inheritance, I've checked your savings account, you're in good shape, I want half of it now, not tomorrow, not when they carry you out feet first. I want it right now because you're as good as dead to me. Okay. Here's the odd part. His dad says, okay, you can have your money now. Doesn't this strike you as a little odd? Maybe his dad continued, your mother and I will try to find extra money if I have a health problem, but you can take your money now. And he does. Now, if one of your kids came to you and said, I want my inheritance now, would you say, okay? Yeah. Maybe one of your kids has done that to you, but would you say, okay? Very odd. There's a second thing that's very odd about this. The father, the patriarch, a man of means, a man who no doubt was important somehow or other in this great desert they lived in. He does go running down the road as his son approaches. He's delighted to see him. He runs down the road. That's very undignified for a patriarch. Very undignified. And when he sees him, he grabs a hold of him and gives him the biggest hug ever, calls for the ring, calls for the sandals, calls for the robe, calls for the fatted calf. He's so happy. Let's throw a party. So say you hear a noise at the curb one night and you peek out of your blinds, and there's that son of yours. He pulled up his 20-year-old VW Beetle at the curb. He steps out of it, and he's got the papers showing his failed grades and his courses sticking out of his pocket. You can see from afar that his back seat is full of dirty clothes and McDonald's wrappers. Are you going to run down to the curb and say, honey, you're home, you're home? Hug his son. Shout out loud to the neighbors who are probably peeking beneath their blinds, through their blinds. Come on, we're having a party tonight. We're going to cook a big pot of spaghetti. Come on over. He's home. He's back. Does that strike you? A little odd? A little odd? Maybe you have had a child who showed up at home unexpectedly. I remember once when I wasn't sure what color my daughter's hair would be this time. I didn't know. Yeah. But he threw a party, threw a feast. Now that's pretty odd. Pretty odd. So there's something else odd too. The older son, out in the field, he wasn't invited to the party. Nope, they left him off the invitation list, right? When he found out, he was angry about that and bitter. His father comes out again. This is odd. His father comes out to him. Theoretically, the son should have gone to his father and bowed in obedience, just like all of our sons bow in obedience to us, right? Well, maybe not. But he should have let the son come to him, the older son come to him. Instead, the father goes out and really tries to appease him, tries to draw him into the party. And the older son just says, what are you doing about this loser son of yours? And he says, this son of yours, not my brother. I've been the one who's worked my fingers to the bone. I've been the one who's slaved. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. And the father says this to him, which is very wonderful and very odd. He says, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. See, it is his. The younger son got his half of the inheritance. What's left is the older son's. You've got it. Look it, this is yours. Everything I have is yours. We don't know whether the son said, okay, I'll go get some fatted calf. We don't know that. But we know the father did something very odd. by coming out to his son and wrapping him again in his love. Well, why am I going on and on about a story you know so well? It's because today I want us to focus on the fourth character in this story. It's not the mother, she's somewhere. Mothers always get a bit neglected in the Bible. Like Noah's wife, she doesn't even have a name. The mother's somewhere, but the fourth character, I'm going to call it a character, is this. It's grace. And it's grace that is so abundant. It's so extravagant. It's so unfair. It's unfair because it covers us all. We who know that we are the younger son, okay, right? There is that about us that wants to have our own way and use our money as we please and maybe say, well, next month I'll give something for the Ukrainian refugees, but there's a sale at Talbot's right now and I want to buy clothes, so I'm not going to do it right now. We're younger brothers and we're older brothers and sisters, younger brothers and sisters, older brothers and sisters. It can just chew us up that someone we think should have had terrible luck in life because they're not a particularly nice person. It chews us up that they seem to have blessings from God. Makes us really angry. We're both younger and older sisters and brothers. And as it said today in our confession, in Lent, we don't keep silent about that. But grace is there. And grace is the answer to the question of, well, who in this family, we would call this family a dysfunctional family, right? A dysfunctional family. I used to have a sign that said, let's put the fun back in dysfunctional. A friend said, take it down. This dysfunctional family, terribly dysfunctional. Grace appears among this family, over this family, in this family, through this family, around this family. And every one of those characters is a member of the family, as is the mother, also the slaves and the hired hands. Everyone is a member of this family. You see, Jesus tells parables because they're about the reign of God. And sometimes we think of that as meaning, well, who's in and who's out? Who's in the reign of God? Who's out? This is about the reign of God. And Jesus' word for us today about the fourth character in this story is grace covers us all. Grace is extravagant. It's not fair. It covers us all. In a church where my husband was the pastor and I was on the bishop's staff, so I wasn't at that church very often. Did I want to be? Yep. But I was in other congregations for various and assorted reasons, some good, some not so good. But I had a job at church. I asked for a job, one that I could do. And I got the job of putting a new wording out on the church sign every weekend. That was my job. The hard thing about that job was that the sign, there were thousands of people in Atlanta who went by this sign, so it was good for us to put it up. It was brick, raised up. It had a heavy plexiglass door, and it had thorny bushes all around it. That was the hardest part, making my way through the thorny bushes to change the letters. But I could do that. That was a job that was just right for me. Before Reformation, the pastor, my husband, he always told me what to put on the sign. And he said, this Sunday, put on, God's grace is not fair. So I did. I got all the letters out, put the old ones out, got them lined up, got it spaced, got it put up, locked the plexiglass again, climbed through the thorny bushes. And then my job was done. I felt pretty good about it. Well, the next day, my husband got a phone call, one of those phone calls. Someone who was angry, kind of like an elder sister she was. She said, "You take that sign down right now. I want you to take that sign down. If you don't take that sign down, I'm coming over and I'm going to take it down. You take it down right now. That's a terrible sign." So Tim went, and yes, and she went, well, I guess that was still in the days, because was that still in the days when you could do that? It's so unsatisfying now just to go, yeah. God's grace isn't fair. We don't earn it. We don't deserve it. We can't do anything. No one can take it away from us. We can't even make God stop bestowing grace on us. As my son Jay says again and again, there's nothing we can do to make God love us more. There's nothing we can do to make God love us more. There's nothing we can do to make God love us less. Grace, the fourth character, is extravagant. It's not fair. It's amazing, and it's wonderful. And now, Paul asked in Romans 6, well, do we just go out then and sin a whole lot so God can give us more grace all the time? No. But what we do is realizing that God's grace is here for us, filling us, empowering us, loving us. We have to share that good news, and we have to share it as vibrantly, as enthusiastically, and persistently as did the elder, as did the father in this parable that I would like to rename, in the parable of God's reckless grace. Amen.